Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 2022 League of Legends College Championship round of 16. To wrap out the round of 16, we have University of California, Irvine going up against Illinois State University. Yep, and thank you very much for the graphic. We saw our first series happen. Maryville took the win over U Buffalo, and on this stream, Bay State took the win over St. Louis. Happening over on Unified Live right now is going to be Arizona State versus Converse Esports, which I think is going to be a very, very interesting series. But make sure that you guys are tuning into this one as well, because I think it can be incredibly close. Oh my gosh, what a crazy first series that we just, got to decompress from a little bit. But, moving on to ISU versus UCI. I know during our prep, TJ, you said that this is going to be a bloodbath one way or the other. You want to kind of let me in on a little bit of the reasoning behind you thinking that?
Yeah, so I think that these teams are in the upper tier of teams, but they're not like the S plus tier. And so for that reason, kind of like in the last series, like we have teams that want to win, they're clearly showing up, they have really good players. But I think some of the team coordination is kind of lacking. And I think that we might see that on an individual level from certain members, where it's like maybe some underperformance here, maybe some wacky picks that don't pan out. And so I'm expecting a very scrappy series where either team can take it, kind of like the last one, and it really depend on like who shows up on the day, and that's always the big question for these collegiate series.
Yeah, it really does feel like a lot of these series, not only is it who shows up on the day, but it's who kind of feels like throwing a little bit. So many of these series, I mean, we just saw a series, right, where these teams are going back and forth, and then eventually, one team makes a misstep, they go a little bit too far forward, and it just flips the entire other way. Solo, I know that you're a California native. Is there anybody kind of standing out on the roster of UCI when you take a look at it that maybe from solo queue or you're familiar with at all?
I know a few of them. I know obviously the UCI Duong Pro. I've seen that guy quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty familiar with him. I've seen Barrick a few times as well. He likes playing a lot of those carry champions, so I know that he's a pretty good player. So yeah, I mean, UCI is pretty close to me, so I gotta be rooting for the UCI boys. So props to them. Gotta keep it SoCal here.
I love it. I love it. Cinnamon Bread is a favorite of mine. He played in amateur a little bit. He got some hype around him. I do think that, moving on a little bit to the mid lane matchup, TJ, I know last week when we were on, we were covering Illinois State University, and you did talk a lot about Drew Dozer, and I know you have some pretty ironed out thoughts about him. Would you like to share them? Because I think Drew Dozer is a player that most people are familiar with, and I think you've got a unique take on him.
Yeah, so Drew's probably one of the most known players on ISU. Maybe you could argue that Tempos is more well known, maybe more infamous. But I think that Drew is a player that is willing to play whatever character is good in the match, and I have huge respect for a player like that. The question becomes, is he good on that character in that match? Like, what is the performance like? But I do respect the fact that he will pick any of those characters. We did see some disappointing things from him last year around, where maybe he didn't have the performance that he wanted in Game 5 type of situations. And so that's always a potential concern to watch out for. But I do think that he's relatively solid. He's kind of gone away from his coin flip days. He is not necessarily not a coin flipper now, but he's much more stable than he was before we really started playing an amateur. So I like to see that growth. And I really hope that he can showcase that today, where how is he being consistent and what is the story he wants to set from now on?
Yeah, I really do like, laying out that groundwork for Drew Dozer, because it does feel like he's one of these players that is very flexible. And kind of casting our minds back to last series, Solo, I know that those mid laners, they didn't really feel like they were playing too many different champions, but when Serenok was playing the Vex, something that not necessarily is known for, what is that flexibility in draft from a mid laner willing to play so many things to fit the game? How do you think that helps a team out in draft?
I mean, anything you'll be able to, like, if you can play anything, it's definitely going to be a help you, especially for champion pool, going to be able to go to 4-5. I think the biggest thing, especially for probably playing against someone like that, not knowing like what you're expecting to play against is going to be a big deal. You only got, under a minute or so to kind of figure out what you're going to do, what you're going to pick into certain stuff. So being able to catch people off guard with stuff that they're probably not doing a lot of prep on is going to feel pretty impactful helps or creates mistakes for the enemy team. So kind of any that element of surprise is going to matter a lot for a draft.
Well, we saw that in the last series with a Nocturne. That's a character that was maybe a little weird, not very standard. Yeah. And in this series, I think that can come out in a lot of places from the side of ISU. I think we can see that in mid, as I mentioned. Disconnector, their top laner, is traditionally AD carry, so he's very willing to play stuff like Graves, stuff like Quinn, Vayne top, like just unique characters. He's also a fan of Ornn solo. Don't worry, he does like to play the Ornn, get the free win.
I've seen enough Graves for today. I don't need that again.
We saw some interesting drafts from ISU last week. So maybe we'll have some more interesting things. Maybe some of them better than others. But I would be remiss to not mention the fact that Drew Dozer was a Katarina one trick at some point, and that could always come out. And a lot of people say that character sucks, but how crazy would it be to just pull out like Katarina triple kill resets going all around? It would fit the collegiate style that we played today and really all of this tournament.
One thing I do really enjoy about watching collegiate is that because a lot of the players are a little bit more limited on champion pool, it is really curious how they kind of like morph their team comps to kind of fit around a lot of those aspects. And they end up coming up with some pretty creative stuff. And sometimes it's good from even like a top level, but regardless, it's definitely interesting to see, you know, how they make sure that they can like play around weaknesses and play around limited pools.
That's the beauty of this level of play, because you have players, and especially it feels like UCI is a team that fits this bill where they're a little bit less known. They're maybe not as high up there in terms of experience and in terms of solo queue rank, and so they're a little bit more like raw in a sense where they're just willing to play League of Legends. They just love playing it. They've got picks that they're really freaking good at, and they're gonna whip them out on this level of a stage where, you know, maybe some other teams, they kind of shoehorn themselves into what they think might be meta, even if that's not what is best for the team. So I am excited to see what kind of picks are going to come out in this series, but we do only have about a minute and a half left till we kick it over to draft, which means it is prediction time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to brag about it, but I may have been right last time, and I am the only ISU supporter. So Solo, I'm going to start with you, my friend, the California native. Why are you going UCI 2-0?
Well, it was funny. Yeah, we were doing predictions, and I was like, "Wow, I should just pick whatever Dylan picks because he was so right the first time." But you know, I'm really close to UCI. I've been to some cool parties there, so I gotta go with them. What more do you need? They got cute girls on campus. I know what's important.
Well, I'm selecting UCI for a different reason. The reason that I'm selecting UCI is that ISU is my crosstown rival. I coach at a school right next to them. I can't say they're going to win. I need them to look bad. So with all the variance that's possible in the game, and it can kind of go either way, I think that Barrick might show up huge today and gap Disconnector. I'm excited for it. So I'm going UCI.
Yeah, keyword might gap Disconnector. Yes. I think it's gonna be a 2-0 for ISU. It's gonna be 2 games of Ornn from Disconnector because he's one of the only top laners in the top 16 that just doesn't have an ego, and he knows that he's a role swap top laner from AD carry, so he's just gonna lock in wherever he wants. No, but for real though, I think this series has so much potential to go either way, and we've been saying that for every series so far in the LCS cast, but it's just been so much fun so far to be able to share these games with you guys and to, you know, really just watch all of these incredible moments unfold. But we do have draft ready. Players are ready to get into the second series of the day, round of 16, the final tickets booked to Los Angeles. Rebel Fox, Travesty, take us into the second series.
And we're so excited for it. I'm Travesty. I'm joined with Rebel. And like our Desh just said, just as Dylan just so expertly put it, this is the last of the top 16 getting rounded out between these 2 games that are happening. And it's looking like it's going to be a fantastic series to end us off.
We had 4 very, very competitive series from start to finish here on the LCS channel. I think every single game, every single battle between 2 teams has been incredible, and this absolutely is one of the best to end on because these 2 teams are incredible. They have absurdly high highs when it comes to what teams are capable of producing, and I'm very excited to see which one of them can live up to the type of hype and expectation that I have for both of these teams, especially in the long run. But even right now, both of them are teams that could definitely push for a run, not just in the top 8, but I'm talking in the top 4, maybe top 2.
This could be a deep run made. And like you said, whoever wins this could be an odds-on favorite in top 8, right? Like, they could make that deep run all the way through. And these are two teams that are looking very competitive against one another. We have UCI and ISU going head-to-head against one another.
And the thing that marks both of them is that we have a lot of players that were new on both rosters. The biggest thing is UCI over the last couple of years have been reforging from when they were very competitive back in the day, and now have found a bunch of freshman recruits that have turned this roster upside down from being in the West and not being able to have the most success over the last couple of years, kind of marring around in some of the 4th, 5th, 6th discussion, not qualifying whatsoever, to being at the top of the table in the West, 1 game short of winning that against ASU. And on the opposite side, again, ISU, incredibly storied the last couple of years in the Northern Conference, has been this incredible fighting team that has just been getting better and better over the course of the entirety of their existence in the last 2 years, being able to be competitive with the likes of Maryville, being able to be competitive last year with Winthrop as they were getting through, Harrisburg when they were getting through as well, showing that they have the capability and the arms to be able to compete with the top teams in collegiate themselves. Now find themselves in a matchup to be able to make it to that big stage in LA.
Yeah, and that is what they're looking. They're wanting to get that final plane ticket locked in, as they know who their opponent is. Whoever wins this series, ISU is on the blue side, UCI on the red side. We are in pick and ban already.
We're in a great position for both these teams to have some exciting picks, right? Drew Dozer, I know he's pretty far removed from the Katarina days, but that doesn't mean that I can't always vote for it to come through. Barrick, we talked about having a bit of a unique pool, but both of them have had unique styles over the last bit of while. First off, let's start with ISU, because they had a bit of a change of style back when they had a new jungler, when GFP stepped onto the main roster, when Nuclear stepped in to be this late-game team-fighting monster. I think they've gone a little away from that since there were some patch changes, but ultimately I feel as though the identity of Nuclear to be the hyper late game carry, Drew Dozer to be able to do the same thing when we get to late game territory, feels as though it's bread and butter for Illinois State. So my expectations are a little bit softer composition from the mid and the bot. Don't expect them to get incredibly active and fighting to start with. They don't expect skirmishing type champions out of those roles, and instead that's going to be in the mode of GFP and Nausicaa. Those are the people that you're expecting to really get down and dirty to kick off a game.
It needs somebody to make sure that you protect the scaling advantage, like you said, the late game advantages that ISU has found time and time again off the back of some superb play from Drew Dozer and Nuclear in the late game has happened time and time again. It has been stored throughout their run, especially inside the North Conference, but UCI ain't no slouches either. They're looking to press the envelope on aggression as well, and look at how much attention already in bans GFP is getting from UCI. You were talking about that being a deadly weapon for ISU, but no Karthus, no Nocturne.
And I will make this claim, which is that GFP oftentimes, stepping into games, he ends up in a number of circumstances in the pre-15-minute area with 2 kills, multiple assists, has good impact at the beginning of the game, and it's later in the game that he has to be carried a little bit when it comes to team fighting. But ultimately, when it comes to the beginning of the game for ISU, it is built on the premise of Gluten-Free Panda, who is this incredible jungler when he's got something early game to work with, and you can see why they're pinching off some of the more important champions for him, and as well as the Rise being taken away from Drew Dozer. As of recently, they've really been taken to having him use this champion in the mid lane, scale up with it, and have more map impact, attempting to use those realm warps in very creative ways, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, unfortunately, for Mr. Drew Dozer, but that's not to say that they're not practiced on it. The problem is they've given up Karma, which is a 3-way flex for this team, although I assume that this is also a 3-way flex champion for UC Irvine, so we're just flexing in all different ways here today.
Yeah, all sorts of different flexing. We got some flexible players on the Rift here, and they are going to exercise that inside of this draft. As you can already see, as you were talking about, the Lucian Nets pick to come about from UCI be an interesting one, as Volibear still left open and is a pick that you could definitely be aggressive with.
It is, and UC Irvine has showed a lot of different styles, but the one that worked for them best, or the one that I'm most proud to talk about, is when they beat Golden Guardians Academy, the Academy team that was top 4 inside of Academy and PG. They beat them in game 1 of their series, which is the only time you can say, because UCI ended up getting swept from that point in the tournament, so we're not going to talk about the rest of it. But they won it off the back of very early aggressive play from Duong Pro, and playing around, just constantly making the opposing jungler very uncomfortable. And if you're too slow of a composition, UCI understands how how to punish you for it. So you have to be a little bit careful. Of course, Illinois State do get Ornn from Arcane, so that's a little bit of a problem. We talked about that earlier in the day, is something that could pop up, and here they are the ones going for it. Disconnector now, unfortunately, does run into the menace that is Barik, and what champion he has in mind to be able to punt, because if you're going to blind it, you got to be ready for the blind.
But there we go. There's the Lilia. We did get to see it in our last series as we were talking about it, but this time it's GFP who secures themselves the Lilia, and it's a champion that fits the playstyle to the mold.
Yeah, I really do like it because it's something that can clear with relative speed, and it's also something that can fight in the early stage of the game against melee champions. You can kind of space away the Volibear, and you can team fight it with it really effectively, especially since you have long-range engage to work with the Ornn. You also have the ability to use the Marble to be able to apply the same mark and be able to use the Littling Lullaby to engage from a distance against UC Irvine, who've taken this in a different direction, right? Like, you've got Lilia for some clear speed, but ultimately this team is kind of slow from Illinois State with the Ornn. The Karma is useful in a number of situations, but could be flexed into either the mid lane or the support role now, assumably with the Ornn. But on the other side, the Lucian, Nami, and the Volibear, they just want to attack as fast as possible. I talked about that being the strategy that worked for them against a very high-class team like Golden Guardians Academy, and I guess that's what they're opting for here as well, making sure Sahori and Kim Down can get a very good footing at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, and if we want to win condition, Sahori is fantastic. Kim Down's a great supporting member, and I am perfectly fine with this. They're going to grab themselves another champion now, and I believe this should reveal our top lane matchup going into the Ornn. What does Barik have in store for us today?
That is a fantastic question. I'm a little confused about the Yone pick. They must still be thinking that there's a bit of flexibility to come about, and maybe solo AP coming through. This is almost certainly means that the Volibear is going into the top lane. Again, when you talk about top laners being able to take it, I kind of theorized in the last game there was potential for it. Barik is the one that will prove to me, prove to everybody that was doubting that the Volibear can be flex top, that it will be flex top, because it seems like Duong Pro now wants very high velocity to start off a game. You want to be pushing as fast as possible to aggress against the side of ISU. You are not going to let them sit stagnant in a game like this. Instead, you are push, push, push with this Nidalee pick from the side of UCI.
But on Illinois State, they revealed Karma to be in the mid lane. Jhin, Nautilus, locked and secured for them. Now, UCI, they got any champion of their choice. And oh my gosh, there's so many ults to steal with the Sylas. Just recently got buffed too. Okay, all right. I was about to say, switch it over to Cinnamon Bread's Aurelia, which is very infamous.
I was a little terrified there for a second. So I was like, there's no way they're like flexing the Nidalee to a solo lane, right? Nope, nothing crazy like that. Instead, again, solo AP for Duong Pro. And I do have okay. First off, the Karma flex to top lane. I said it could possible to happen. I'm assuming what happened was they saw the Volibear, they grabbed up the Karma, they know it's a flex, they grab the Ornn, they say, okay, we can move it between top and mid, whoever decides to want to play it in a game like this. And then they see that the Volibear is going into the laning phase. It's not going mid, so they're like, okay, we need to avoid the Ornn and a Volibear because he will just bully it in the beginning of the game, try to make a constant aggression, especially since you have a lot of tower dive. You think Renekton and Nidalee is a good combination. Volibear Nidalee at level 6 can just dive you under tower with no ramifications at all, and it means the Ornn gets shut out of the earlier stage of the game. So this is a very good setup. This is, again, that aggression that we talked about from UCI to kick things off. And they're going to put the Karma up there instead to prevent that interaction from coming through, try to protect the Ornn a little bit more. Just Drew Dozer is instead going to put on his mid lane denial pants of the Aurelia to the best of his abilities.
I just love the fact that our desk highlighted it earlier with Drew Dozer having this insane champion pool where he's just like, I'll play anything. This is Drew Dozer's insanity. He lives inside of. He's just like, I will play something like the Ornn in the mid lane. And that is the flexibility that comes about when you play this. But to highlight what you were talking about, I'm a little bit concerned because the aggressiveness that is from UCI here, you have a Nidalee pick, which automatically dictates that this Nidalee is going to be in your face the entire time. Lucian, Nami, bot lane, Volibear looking to run you down at level 6, and then you got an Aurelia, and it's Cinnamon Bread's Aurelia, which is a signature champion for Cinnamon Bread to pop off on. There's a lot of tools that they want to aggress with, especially in the early to mid game.
So my issue that I have with ISU's constructed composition here is that there is very little damage, right? Like, you've got Karma in the top lane, who's going to be likely building support. You could build a bit more AP and get yourself a bit more damage, but again, it's not a champion that's going to scale for damage in the later phases. You got Lilia, who's got some damage, right? Jhin is not the most damage-oriented ADC in the world, and you've got a mid-Ornn. right? You are not a damage composition. You are focused far more on using your engagement tools from a very far distance. I mean, you've got, Jhin ultimate, Ornn ultimate, and then you have, like, the ability to apply Lilting Lullaby from way away, and you just pick somebody like that, right? The problem is if these ultimates are not used properly and not used to pick off champions from UCI, they've got an absurd amount of damage, right? You got Lucian Nami, you've got Nidalee to be able to throw spears and challenge from range, you got Aurelia to be able to close distance. Like, the team fight looks so different if you don't have this type of damage.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what ISU's response is to this, because if UCI gets off onto a good foot, not just in every lane, right, but in one place, if Aurelia is doing well, or if the Lucian is doing well, or heck, even if the Nidalee or the Volibear are doing well, you have damage to carry in fights against ISU, who might struggle to find that damage. And so it means that UCI has easier ways to play around individual players of their team, rather than having to play the pure 5-on-5, where you need all 5 members on ISU to really commit to a full-on fight, because otherwise you are just without a bunch of damage backing. You are without what you need in order to actually take full engagement. So I do fear for that. To me, it leans really heavily into ISU believing that they can play out full 5-on-5, 30-minute plus game, and UCI wants to prevent that to the best of their ability.
Here we are. We're going into game number 1. Had to see if ISU have something up their sleeve. If they have that surprise damage dealer that's going to be able to come out in a fight. As, like you said, kind of have a couple pings, question mark pings, coming up across our heads where we're like, wait a second, where's it going? But hey, yo, ISU starting off spicy already.
They're just coming down here to make sure that there is no, cheese to come out from Sahori and Kim down, right? It's a phenomenal duo that they've got, and a very aggressive combination in the Lucian Nami, and it means that they want to prevent that from coming through. It's a rock that I think UCA is built on, that they have arguably one of the better bot lanes inside of.
Oh no, Sahori doesn't know.
Sahori doesn't know.
No, he doesn't know. He's caught out. First blood to Illinois State.
Cursed, caster curse. That's my bad. Don't worry. I'll take full credit for that one. I was talking you up, and it just ends up not being the case because there's no one there to contest, right? You're not expecting for a Jhin Nautilus to want to compete for that like mid control of like the lane, right? You're expecting the Lucian Nami to want it. They go to full 5 points, and they don't realize that the brush cuts off the vision, and so Sahori's in the middle of the river. Probably could have been closer to his jungle entrance. Like usually, you're not getting punished there without seeing someone coming, but this happened to be the circumstance in which Sahori gave himself up because he was just out of position at least a little bit. So unfortunately, it is the 1 kill going over. It does go onto the Jhin as well, and Nuclear is this addition to the team that has really made the massive difference for them being able to swap to this late game style. Of course, on the Jhin, not as impactful as like the Zeri and the Jinx that we saw from him earlier on in the season, but at minimum, it's a great start for a lane that could have been very rough.
And you're talking about swaps, we already see it. The shuffle has begun. UCI are the ones that initiate it, and Illinois State say, no, we want Karma to go into the Volibear.
I have seen so many games where these shenanigans get played for far too long.
Oh,
What a pull!
Sorry, still gets caught by the dredge line. He is caught completely out of position. This is not a great start for your Lucian Nami.
No, it is not. It's the level 1 trying to take advantage of both the Nautilus being able to play aggressively and the Jhin still having like the execution damage and a lot of that. They're going to lose the level 2 fight as well. It's a very bad position to be in for UCI's bot lane. That was supposed to be a pretty advantaged position for them across the map. Something to consider as the game continues. The one positive thing about this lane swapping I will bring about for UCI, of course, is that, again, we talked up Cinnamon Bread being a very, very good player for them, and his Aurelia being a pretty storied member of this team, is that if you're playing in mid lane, I think it's harder to try to find aggression into an Ornn, whereas in the longer lane, the Aurelia's kind of catching power is a lot more useful. Look at this wraparound from Duong Pro. The push in from Nausicaa and Nuclear. You're going to find a little bit of CC on the way out, but this is a very deep flank from the Nidalee to try to find aggression to begin this game.
Yeah, looking for the aggression, but the aggression has been turned back. The exhaust has been used. The Nidalee is forced back, and they don't even get any summoners. The Dark Harvest, that gain, but at what price did you have to pay? The heal has been used. The flash dredge line. Sahori can't get out. He barely flashes away. And almost used. Oh, Nuclear!
Finding the aggressive flash forward, and again, furthering this advantage that the bottom side gained from just the level 1. All of the summoners burnt. The level 3 not acquired by Kim Down and by Sahori, so the bubble didn't look like it was able to be utilized by the Nami, which is one of the biggest CC tools to punish this bottom lane. And now, ISU, despite the fact that we criticize not much damage, having an advantage in your one pretty massive damage dealer is a great way to kick off a game like this.
Especially over Lucian Nami, man.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see this every day, and it was all started with a wraparound gank that came out from this Nidalee. What a beautiful turnaround, and this is the bot lane. Nuclear has been a stellar member of this squad, and they've been struggling. You talked about it a little bit, finding their style yet again because of the fact that the Zeri Jinx picks were not as popular. They were falling off in terms of what was optimal for the draft. Nuclear is adapting just fine right now inside this series.
Feels really good to be able to shut out the Lucian Nami combination. Now with level 3, I think it's harder to try to continue to push this, but already with the with plated steel caps a bit more elsewhere. Okay. They're still just playing towards bottom side. They're still just trying to punish this Lucian Nami to the best of their abilities, prevent it from snowballing at all down here. They understand the threat that's in front of them, right? They think that they can neutralize with this Karma and this Ornn in their solo lanes, that if they continue to put these resources into bottom side, continue to play into Nuclear, that ISU will be able to get out of this early game unscathed. For the most part, it's been working so far. I am anticipating, once again, a little bit of action between these solo laners and this Nidalee. This Nidalee has the ability to try to ramp this Aurelia, ramp this Volibear up as well, rather than just focusing on recovering from bottom side.
Nidalee taking away the Wolves, gets out scot-free. JK gets caught on the edge of the knockup, forcing a flash from the Nidalee.
Well played from Drudozer. Again, he's on the Ornn, so he's not really that worried, especially in the mid lane, sacrificing a little bit of resource, a little bit of gold in exchange for just being able to help out his jungler. And like you said, the flash burn from the Nidalee, preventing Duong Pro from making any of these really aggressive plays, haven't been able to find anything. You see that stat line in the bottom left. Drudozer on Ornn in 2022, 1-1, 4.86 KDI. I know they've played this before. I just wasn't necessarily expecting it for game number 1 with the champions they'd picked, but I mean, if you've got the flexibility, you've got the flexibility. Here it is. Yeah, and he's not really worried about the Volibear anymore either, because he's got the Bramble Vest as well. Yeah. So, you know, that auto-attacking consistency from Barik doesn't really matter as much to him. So now they're okay with him swapping, playing these lane shenanigans as much as UC Irvine has been trying to get themselves that positive lane state.
I feel like Drudozer is the only person out there that can possibly have that stat line where they've had Ornn games mid lane. I just think that is a interesting stat because it's also just like, yeah, nobody else also has this stat because nobody else is unhinged like Drudozer when it comes down to looking at champions and just selecting the entire tab and just saying, yeah, I can play this mid. As you can see, Illinois State are trying to make some proactive moves around the map. We're seeing the shuffle continue to happen between these laners. It is constantly Drudozer and Cinnamon Bread just playing a game of tag, moving around the map. Barik trying to match up with Drudozer on this Ornn. It is just constantly just members moving around, shuffling in this early game.
Yeah. It's a position where it has led to a little bit of CS advantage, but again, when you have low econ solo laners like the Ornn and like the Karma and their solo lanes, Disconnector and Drudozer feel confident in their ability to affect fights even without a bunch of gold, especially on these champions, to be able to superpower some of the members on their team. Haven't pushed it all that much further. Here's another plan to come down. He's able to dodge out. He's without flash. Oh.
No flash. He is dead to rights here. They're wanting to get one more shot off onto him. Escape path cut off. Nuclear is on a killing spree, and Dragon will be their prize afterwards. There is no Nidalee to contest this.
It's been a very good early game from ISU. Their game plan has really just been pound into bottom lane as much as possible from basically the first moments we've seen Sahori and Kim Down take this aggression, trying to set up Nuclear. Nausicaa as well on this Nautilus has found a couple of really mean hooks to help with this process as well. And again, it's a question of, you know, scaling in this game does change things quite a bit. ISU's comfortable with their late game team fighting. They have problems with their damage, but they're feeling good about Nuclear being able to take over some of this mid game as well. We'll see if they're able to kind of take advantage of that. As once again, Duong Pro going in for a bit of an invade, finding this blue buff potentially steal away from Lilia.
Is looking to do it. Will secure it. Call the Forge God comes in though, and it's just a buff transfer completed over to the mid of Illinois State.
Really, really good combination. Like the CC and the early game damage from the Karma is high enough to be able to punish this as Duong Pro. Again, he's trying to steal away things from GFP to respond to all this bottom side pressure that's come through. But we just haven't seen him connect with the lanes. Like, I want to see him connect with Barik to go for a dive. I want to see him connect with the Aurelia to be able to CC somebody and bring them down with a bunch of single target damage. But so far, Illinois State not giving them the openings to be able to do something like this. Again, these lane shenanigans that they're playing, despite the fact that it's costing them some CS, really is working out quite nicely.
A little bit lost inside of the sauce. Disconnector catching those claws, but Barik is catching all this minion aggro, all this poke, and He is just going to have to call down some lightning and retreat to the safety of his tower as we see a rotation into this mid lane.
Kimdown is remarkably behind in experience right now. You can see Cinnamon Bread is 7. He's going to try to stun them up. Nice dodge of the hook. Not going to fall behind. Kimdown and Duong Pro being around probably would have prevented this from being anything more than just a little bit. It's wave control of the mid lane that they're looking for, and maybe a shift into Rift Herald as well. Gotta make sure that they have that. I wonder how close Noska is to 6. It's always the thing I track when it comes to Rift Herald swaps, is how close is the support to getting that ultimate, because it makes such a difference. Kimdown just hit level 5, so I'm assuming Noska is on his way to 6, but probably not there yet. Not going to get it before the Rift Herald comes through. Maybe on this wave, maybe that's why they're pushing for this wave, but Sahori swapping up as well means that they've got more members here. Barik is also just now returning to the top side as well, so Rift Herald for UCI, uncontested at the moment.
They are going to grab this at the moment, but Noska smells it out. He sniffs it, and it is them going to go for it. Drew Dozer does not have ultimate. This could be a rough fight. Here we go. Vanguard's Edge doesn't hit, but the stun on Drew Dozer does. Forces the flash, and there it is. It's contested, but secured by UCI.
And this is one of the youths that are coming in from the side of UC Irvine is Cinnamon Bread, which is somebody that made a lot of noise in amateur and collegiate by upsetting Wildcard in one of the first splits, played on a couple of teams like, I can't remember what the first one, it was something about Toast was the team that he beat Wildcard on, but then also coming back on Mercenaries and being able to make some noise in a couple of different circumstances as this mid laner that people talked about. And again, being able to be on the team that kind of upset UCI. They brought in all these young players to work around, and Cinnamon Bread has really come into his own. Right there, one flash from the Aurelia cost 3 flashes from ISU around this Rift Herald, despite the early kind of wins that ISU has been able to pull. That speaks to the level of respect that has to be given over to the Aurelia, and specifically Cinnamon Bread's Aurelia, and the fight setup that UC Irvine had around this Rift Herald speaks quite a bit, especially when they're down this much kind of agency to begin the game.
Yeah, I like this kind of respect, too, from Illinois State, because it is also them saying, hey, they recognize currently the wind is blowing in their sails, and they're able to push forward with this. But they know at any moment the gust could take a sharp turn, it could tear them apart, and it can leave them misguided and lost at sea if they are not careful, because this composition can snowball very effectively, especially this Aurelia being a linchpin inside of what the composition can. And you can see, even in the spotlight, the aggression has not stopped. There is a 40 CS differential between the Jhin and Lucian. This is not something you see every day.
You do not. It's been difficult for Sahori to kind of manage, again, one of these kind of younger players coming in, the immediate beatdown that have been given over to the UCI bottom lane. They've got talented players. They've got a lot of experience down there as well. You talk about Kimdown having played for a long time, both on UCI and in League of Legends. He's been top of the charts in terms of MMR and a number of times. I think he was ranked 1 at one point. You're into the mid lane, you see him making an effect with Barik.
Curtain call coming in, but look at this. Call the Forge God is going to be used. Drew Dozer going golden at the optimal moment. Saves his life. Rift Herald summoned in the top lane, getting a bit of gold into Cinnamon Bread. But the counterplay is there inside of the mid lane. You do see aggression turning up a notch across the map for both teams.
Biggest thing is first tower gold going over to the side of Irvine and putting that into Cinnamon Bread is humongous, as well as Duong Pro for being able to take over this mid game on the Nidalee. Yes, you lost Barik in the process, but the thing is, you lost 2 turret plates. That's not that big of a deal for the amount that you just put into your Aurelia to begin team fighting with, right? If you're able to land some good spears, if you're able to continue playing around the Aurelia, around these objectives, you have ways to win this game. In fact, the gold lead shrunk from about 2,000 to about 1,000 over the last minute or so. ISU's control of the Dragons is fearsome. It means they can start forcing for team fights in a couple of moments, but I think UC Irvine, once they get onto first, second item kind of territory for Cinnamon Bread, they're going to be okay walking into the river and contesting. Third Dragon could be a very real possibility for our first big 5-on-5 between these two teams.
Yeah, they've been kind of just scrapping, and it's been Illinois State that's been taking advantage of the scraps, but the 5v5 fight is something to be wary of. As you can see, his Barik is very much so highly anticipating. The Colon goes ahead and takes care of Noska's HP. Kill secured, and first kill for UC Irvine.
Disconnector trying to show up to the bottom lane, but again, the TPs are not quite the Unleashed version. Drew Dozer taking some damage from Barik in the mid lane, has Sahori behind him. I don't think it's least anything because the tower's still up, but...
Yep. Also a Bramble Vest, steel-plated boots, Ornn, right? Like, you're not able to really mulch through all of that.
It's a difficulty at least. You can see, like, there's pressure being applied. They're trying to lean, I think, on the side of ISU into some of the more powerful members like Nuclear to ensure, again, the econ doesn't really matter when it comes to the Karma, so they can lean more around making sure that you have space to work with some of the damage that needs to come in from UCI as they begin to develop towards it. The gold lead, again, continues to shrink. Off the back of that kill, you can see there's actually shutdown gold available for Cinnamon just from farming. He's up 20 CS over Nuclear, who's got 3 kills in this game, has the completed Blade of the Rune King, so side laning is, for the most part, not really an option anymore into him. So now you see Irvine's real goal is just to make sure that Cinnamon Bread constantly has a place to farm. Barrett can collect waves as he needs to in the sides, but honestly can just stand on top of their bot lane and make sure that works.
I was about to say, is this going to be a solo kill? The Vanguard's Edge has been used. The Call the Forge God is not going to be utilized. Druidozer goes for the headbutt, but immediately catches those claws. A beautiful kill for UCI in the bot lane.
Yeah, I hear a lot about how Druidozer is the best in the world, but I don't know that Chovy misses that headbutt, man. I'm just saying.
Azori does cleanse after the depth charge. Curtain Call comes in. Won't be enough to secure the kill on Azori. He dashes away. It's all fine for the side of UCI. They are getting a tremendous push. And look at how many resources they're just giving to Aurelia, as you were talking about.
And it's now UCI who are actually looking like there's a bit more action across the map mid lane.
Looking for it, Azori. And a little bit aggressive forward. Sad B after catching the bowling ball. But
yeah, it's now, I think, Duong Pro that's picking up a lot more activity around the map. I was kind of expecting this from Nidalee a little bit quicker in the game, but that's the thing that's really defining this mid game here, is Duong Pro finally feeling comfortable. This was the play onto Sahori. Really, really nice. The knockup comes through, presses the cleanse just to make sure that that root was not going to keep him in place, or that first ult shot was not going to slow him down nearly as much, so he could slip out of that situation. Well played by Sahori to be able to use that one to at least reduce the CC, if not just outright remove that slow from preventing him from getting out of that situation. And if he dies, the mid turret falls. So well played by Sahori for being able to stand in place. And if you notice, Travis,
I'm noticing
200 gold lead for UCI, man. Where did this come from? How did this happen? ISU, they're sacking waves for their Karma. They're sacking waves for their Ornn. They're making sure that they are putting as much as they can into Nuclear, but they're giving up gold to Cinnamon Bread in the process.
Where'd it come from? Where'd it go? I can tell you where it went. It looks like it's all down here into the bot lane was Cinnamon Bread. He's looking to continue jumping forward. Lots of damage being put in, but this is Cinnamon Bread with no mana. He's right now. It is not going to allow him to continue going for his shenanigans. Will be the disengage. Maybe Nidalee still want to be a menace. Nuclear still having the upper amount of gold on this team, but you can see you were hyping up the Nidalee, you were hyping up the Aurelia. That's where the gold is. There is a huge gap between them and the rest of the players in this game.
It's such a weird position we're in a game like this, where like they're so close in terms of gold. You have this massive Aurelia carry for the side of Irvine. They have to put a bunch of faith into their young mid laner here to make sure the Aurelia is going to be able to carry through this team. Big thing is also being able to work through the health bar, of course, of Druidozer, because he's got a pretty bulky health bar. He's going to get nothing but tankier here, and Cinnamon Bread's going to have to work his way through that. Sahori basically doesn't have the damage for that. Duong Pro really isn't designed to do that either. The two of them are far more focused, I believe, on being able to put in pressure to the backline to ensure that they aren't going to be able to come up and support the positioning if you get aggressive as Druidozer. So at least pay attention to that inside of fights, because now we're getting into the Dragon territory. They grab up the Rift Herald. The question is, are they going to get it?
Being used, they're catching Cinnamon Bread here. They're going to be able to tag, but they cannot bag, as they are going to have the Cinnamon Bread be so elusive. Zori trying to escape, but it's curtains for him, and they are able to find a fantastic catch onto a priority member. Scuttle does go over to the side of Illinois State, and this is sole point they're looking to capture for themselves. There is no Volibear in the vicinity. Aurelia is in a deep flank. This is secured by Illinois State.
Ooh, we'll see if they opt for the fight. The Dragon reset also. Oh, the Blue Ward finds Cinnamon Bread. I was thinking they would actually look for this. They would try to find something because there's a Barrack moving up through the mid lane to try to cut off their escape angle, but it doesn't end up coming through. And I was wondering where Druidozer had actually TP'd to, because I saw him burning the TP and I didn't see where, but he came in on the flank. So Again, LCK or LCS Chovy coming in here with the mid lane, Ornn able to actually find an amazing flank to find himself a position where now he sets his team up for an Ocean Soul.
The trap has been sprung. They moved all their members, all their resources down here for this one moment, and Truedozer is caught out of position on the rotation. And now look at this. UC Irvine are looking to punish in the mid lane. GFP, no tower to defend you. You might say night-night to the Volibear, but Barik gets out just fine.
And you notice that ISU, around some of the structured plays that they have around some of the objectives, these timers that they're keeping in their heads, they're making these really good plays. But UC Irvine, when they're off these timers, the ones that are finding these advantages, finding themselves in a position. I was talking up Truedozer seconds before, and again, I caster cursed him because he falls to that trap on the bottom side of the map. It allows for Cinnamon Bread to get a kill, as well as it looks like they're going to full commit for the bottom tower, which is so much more gold. 325, it's an entire kill's worth of gold into Cinnamon Bread just from the bottom tower alone. And like beyond that, again, Barik also finally using the ultimate to be able to get underneath the mid, inner, or outer tower for UC Irvine to be able to put some gold also into some of these other members. They've got a bulky front line that can do some significant damage. And now Illinois State, they've got themselves a powerful Jhin, right? Like they've got Jhin, and they actually have GFP in a good position. I think GFP being able to take up some of the carry potential is big. But again, you're running into problems of, if this is squishy, these are your squishy champions, they're getting caught out with a spear, they're getting caught out by, a stun from Cinnamon Bread, they get erased, and then what does your team fight look like afterwards?
And it does make them kind of look at the dragon that they've been able to secure off this early aggression that they were able to pull off in the bot lane. They have stacked 3 dragons very successfully, and that's something to keep eyes peeled for, because that's where Illinois State are probably going to look to strike again. UCI might be looking for a moment to see if they can grab another successful team fight, get some kills onto this Aurelia. Just picked up the Gore Drinker. It's going to be so hard, but look at this potential pick. Cinnamon Bread caught out, stunned, rooted, is coming in. Cinnamon Bread able to stay alive for so long, though. The Vanguard, and she's going in. A 1v4, he finds the kill. He is able to find so much. 2 members drop, a double kill. You get Cinnamon Bread, but at what cost?
3 members fall right there. Again, UC Irvine are there on the collapse. They're trying to collapse on the most strong member of the team, but they have no damage to kill him off fast enough. And the CC comes in, Kim down on a nice flank angle, finds themselves in a position to punish the members who walked into ISU, who are trying to put themselves in a place where they can scale in this game. They want the Ornn to be able to get to late game so that he's unkillable. They want the Ocean Soul so that they can find themselves elongated fights where they can stay alive forever. But it's not going to happen if they're giving this much gold. The attempted pick on a Cinnamon Bread comes in here, but look where immediately the Nidalee's positioning was awesome, because the spear, I think, finds Nuclear in the midst of this, which is what caused him to die. So I can't see his health bar because it's over top, but look at this. Okay, it doesn't hit him, it hits Nausicaa. I thought the Spirit hit him in the midst of the fight. But nonetheless, again, Nausicaa goes down to him jumping over the wall. The wave was gorgeous from Kim down on the flank, and they killed Aurelia. Sure, that's great, but they lose 3 members in exchange for it. And this team is trying to go to 5v5 against UC Irvine early in this game before the damage scaling really matters, when they've got these tanky champions, and you've fallen behind now. 3k gold. This Aurelia is strong. This Nidalee is strong beyond belief, and now you forced yourselves into a position where you're probably going to have to sack the next dragon because you don't want a full 5-on-5.
Barik's now splitting, right? Like, it's just like they're walking Rift Herald into the top tower. They're going to be successful at doing just this. That was a pick that was started onto 1 member. But look at this. Who stops Barik from just doing this to the tower? The answer is nobody. And it is Illinois State saying, okay, we will just continue to force pressure in the top side of the map. Don't have your go button. Do just that.
They leave 4 members, my apologies, into that side of the map just to pull the 1 tower. But they sacrifice bottom tower, they sacrifice mid push, they now sacrifice setup around this dragon. I don't think they should be fighting for this dragon anyway, because they need to find a way to actually generate some picks. They've got, again, Lilia's Barble, they've got Ornn Ultimate. They have ways to actually pick people out from a pretty long distance. And so they shouldn't be concerning themselves with 5-on-5 when they're down 4k gold. They're only giving more options to the side of UC Irvine to just accelerate this game even faster in their favor. Maybe they're trying to flip it. Maybe they're really trying to go for Ocean Soul, and they think that's their win condition, but I don't think that wins them this game at all.
Barik with a flank, Cinnamon Bread with a flank. This is dangerous territory. GFP caught out of position. They're going to immediately put the Aurelia asleep, but he goes golden and stops all of it from meaning anything. The fight is pure chaos. Nobody dropped just yet, but UCI looks to change it as Drew Dozer falls victim to the Nidalee Bear trap in the jungle.
And we talk about what Cinnamon Bread's influence has done, what some of these rookies or these freshmen influence has been able to make for the side of UC Irvine, making them into a powerhouse once again against the side of ISU. They dug themselves out of some rough early game experience from a couple of members like Duong Pro and Kim Down, being able to guide them to the right position so that these young players that are incredibly talented put themselves in position to make these massive influences. Right there, Cinnamon Bread absorbed so much at the front end of that fight. Barrick jumping in, pushing this team back, being able to set them up for the Dragon and the win of the team fight now again.
I don't know if you want that. You don't want that. That anchor toss will just be you putting yourself in the coffin every single time. And now look at what happens. This game has completely fallen out of control from Illinois State.
It is a tough position to be in. ISU started on such a good foot, but they just have not been able to find a response to UCI at all. And now it's no longer even just Cinnamon Bread, right? Like, the damage has arrived, really, for Sahori. He finished his second item. He's not all that far behind Nuclear when it comes to the damage department against a team that doesn't have a ridiculous amount of armor. Cinnamon Bread is still a menace, but Duong Pro hitting his spear. Barrick has 2 items. He's got a lock, or he has an hourglass, and he's got a Divine Thunder. He does good damage on this Holy Bear while frontlining as well. This team has so much to work with when it comes to being able to aggress against ISU's composition, and ISU have to come up with an answer fast. They're still on Soul Point. They're very close to being able to secure that one for themselves, and I know it's what they built their comp around, but they need to find ways to utilize some of these champion kits. I still think pick tools are really what they need to start leveraging to try to get some gold back in this game. Rely on Nuclear, rely on GFP, your 2 damage dealers, to celt yourselves up so you can find gold to work your way back into this game little by little.
Especially since that stopwatch has been broken on Cinnamon Bread, right? Can't go golden like that to stop him from going night-night from the Wilting Lullaby, but Cinnamon Bread's just splitting away. You have to send somebody to him. Disconnector goes. He'll be able to clear the wave, but now check it out. It's a Moonstone Karma. You want him with the fight, and this is about to be a rough time for them. Dredgeline does connect, hits onto the Nidalee. Drew Dozer, though, goes the other direction, only finds Kim Down, has the Bellowing Breath, but not able to connect with any of the members of UC Irvine. It is just there to deter the members from pressing onto this tower.
I love this from Duong Pro as well. He's positioned himself in the jungle to just make sure that everyone has to respect his positioning alongside the wave that's coming in, and he buys space for Cinnamon Bread to split push on the other side, pushing a wave underneath the mid of the bottom tower. That's a nice spear onto Nuclear. There's ways to deny that. Again, Moonstone will help, shielding will help, but man, those spears taking half your health bar make it so difficult to find a full-on engagement with these long-standing, long-range tools. Goodness gracious. Illinois State feel like they're kind of getting bullied around the map right now from UC Irvine. Very different from how we saw the opening to this game go.
Yeah.
And a lot of it off the back of, again, Duong Pro has been incredible. 7 of 9 kill participation, and against Cinnamon Bread has also been just an absolute menace. Just finished Guardian Angel. How are you supposed to kill him now?
Yeah.
He's got sustained. He could be in the middle of your team, and even if you kill him, you got to kill him again, and you already don't have the damage to kill him the first time. It's so hard for this team to be able to work. Again, these 3 dragons do stall this game pretty sizably to look for a good team fight, but Illinois State is digging for something that just might not exist at this point.
Yeah, they're digging for gold, hoping they are able to strike out on that, but so far they haven't been able to find anything of worth. They've only been grabbing more and more dirt, and they are in a rough situation. You were talking about it earlier. They need to look for picks. They need to be able to get that, but even if you get the pick, as you just highlighted, can you finish off a fight before the GA finishes popping and Cinnamon Bread goes back into and has reinforcements? Here is the opportunity to see if the test is there. Cinnamon Bread gets shot down so low. He is going to have the GA pop. Wilting Lullaby is there, but he was in the middle of resurrecting. The team protects some depth charge used. They have to use everything.
He's not dead!
Doesn't fall. Barrick is able to go into the back line. They used everything. They threw the kitchen sink, and it wasn't enough. All 5 members of UC Irvine stand tall.
They throw the kitchen sink, they throw the bathwater, they throw the baby, everything gets thrown just to kill Cinnamon Bread, and it doesn't even happen. They don't have it, and as the reinforcements from UCI come in, they close out a game that looked like Illinois State got off to a great start in. There are so many things that UCI did in the middle of this game to turn their fate completely around, but ultimately, man, the focus, the ability to come in and reinforce a member like that, to believe in Cinnamon Bread, to stay alive that long, to know they can win the fight afterwards with that many burnt resources. UCI with a definitive call to be able to capitalize on that game.
Yeah, they just couldn't burn him down in time, right? Like, it just was, you saw the gears were turning, the pick happened, we were waiting for it to happen. Just didn't have anything to shut him down and keep him down. And like you said, they had heel cut. They had all these ways to try and stop it, but it just wasn't enough.
The thing was, that's not even the concern, right? Like, the concern about this composition and the concern about the way this game played out is they have to spend 5 ultimates to kill Aurelia. Even if they kill Aurelia, you lose the fight afterwards. You don't have anything left in the tank to fight with. You've got so much on the other team that still was there and available for themselves in the midst of that last fight. Like, this is round 1. I know the drafts were a little bit funky as well from ISU. This feels a little bit outside of the style that I'd like to see them play. What I really need from them is somebody to just step up and carry. That's what I want from them. Somebody has to say, give me the ball, give me the rock, I will do the dirty business, right? That's what we need to see from the side of ISU. That's what I am expecting for game number 2, is to hand it to somebody, give them the keys to the castle, and say, let's go, because they need something to play around. Because that game felt like they were just getting run around from UCI after the 10 minutes.
Interesting question proposed, and I might not have the answer for you right now, but I know some lads who might be willing to give you that answer. We're going to go ahead and throw it over to our desk as they get us ready for a game number 2, so take it on away.
Thank you very much, Travesty. And there is a lot to talk about for that game, because keeping with the theme that we've had on the LCS channel, one team gets off to an early lead and they're looking freaking good while doing it, and then the game just falls apart and they slowly lose while not really accomplishing too much. But we'll dive into all that. I want to start first and foremost with the draft. Most importantly, Solo, you've been given some great takes on draft all day. What do you think about the two teams' drafts? Who'd you really favor going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, both drafts are a little unconventional, but it's rare to see a draft that has Ornn that I don't like, but this is one of them. I think that's, you know, ISU's comp just has no damage, really, and especially all their damage is AP heavy. I felt like, especially versus what UCI had, I mean, Aurelia is just unkillable, and we saw that in a lot of cases where Jin's not really able to output the damage you need to really take her out, and she can just lifesteal and heal up, especially with having 2 healing champions. She's able to just sustain through any fight and output a ton of damage. So pretty rough for the Jin, just being targeted every time. Yeah, it was tough. And even so, with Jin getting ahead early, it didn't really seem to mean that much for the overall perspective of the comp.
I mean, it's 3 early AP champions. How do you come back from that in a draft? Like, I understand there's flex value and that you want to do things, but ultimately, if UCI just picked anything that builds any magic resist, Aurelia was a great example. It's one of Cinnamon Bread's most played characters. Like, it becomes so hard to win.
That does seem like, it seems from watching some of these games, that's the biggest sin for drafting, I've noticed. That's the one thing they need to avoid, every collegiate team. No triple AP. Just don't do it. Like, triple AP topside, just don't do it. That's like rule number 1. Just stick off of that.
The wise words of pro player Solo, please stop drafting these triple AP
Yeah,
comps.
it's not worth it, man.
It's just not worth it. But let's get into the replays, because there is a lot to talk about with this game. There was action all across the map. And TJ, I want to start with you, our jungle pathing connoisseur on the analyst desk. I know you've been a little bit critical of some of these jungle paths. What do you think of, this early gank attempt from Duong Pro after the 3-camp clear?
So I actually don't mind an early gank like this. It's a little weird to do like the 3 blue camps, but maybe this is an adaptation mid-game, and I appreciate him going over the Dragon Wall. I think that's good. But when you look at it, it's like, of course Nautilus is going to hook, and how do we expect this to play out? There isn't like an engage from the Nami to be able to like pull anything where they're able to like get a lead, and so ISU plays extremely well by like being ready to just run away, hook into the Nidalee. And in this funny exchange here at the end with, flashing away, getting ready to carry caught, losing the wave. Good flash forward from Jhin. I mean, like ISU played it well. Like after they saw the Nidalee and reacting to something that's atypical. So I don't necessarily mind that. I like the adaptation from Nidalee. I just wish it was a little the pathing was different at the start because there's no real reason to path top in this game anyway.
Yeah, I certainly like that take, and I know backstage Solo, you're cringing a little bit at the Nami flashing and getting the Lucian kill. It's a little bit of a feels bad, man. But moving on a little bit, the early stages of the game did not get off to too hot of a start for UCI. It looked like ISU was going to run away with it, but then there was these weird picks in the mid game that started happening, and right around the 18-minute mark, I feel like there was a huge gold swing. Solo, what was really happening on the map here for UCI?
Yeah, they were doing the dragon stacking, blue side was, and I thought it was looking fine. Maybe they'll get to the soul, and the comp differential wouldn't really matter. But once it got to mid game and the map opened up quite a lot, I think they had a lot of problems dealing with Irelia in the side lane, and even Volibear a little bit. And they were able to just be super proactive and hunt down these free kills, and eventually it ballooned into like quite a large gold lead, which made it so that they could just start taking dragon fights, taking the 5v5s. So props to UCI. I mean, that's part of the game too. Once you get out of laning phase, you got to be able to produce gold leads and start making plays with your vision in the dead time between dragons. So they were able to do that, and that's pretty much what won them the game is being proactive.
And on that point, we did see an Ornn mid. It was kind of interesting. I didn't really see the proactivity needed from ISU because the plays were ISU kept trying to make plays on the Irelia, and the Irelia is like the only member that you can't kill in a draft like that, just based on like the magic resist and the outplay potential that comes from the character. So I would love to have seen them maybe make plays on the Volibear, or ideally trying to find the Nami, kind of like we saw in the last series where she burns her flash and instantly she dies.
Yeah, certainly. I do think there are some adaptations to be made. We do have one more replay to get through. Oh my goodness gracious. I feel like this game was just so... It felt like UCI just turned it on a dime. TJ, this fight looks like it's off to a decent start for ISU.
Well, again, like they're trying to make the play on the Irelia here. And this is where Irelia is the only character that has any outplay potential really for a situation like this on the side of UCI. And at the start of this, it is 1v5. Like Irelia is taking so much damage. Her GA is popped. Extremely good GA purchase, by the way. Good stopwatch usage as well. But they overcommitted so much into the Irelia. They're compromising their position. All their abilities are burned. And so UCI is able to come in and clean after the fact. And I think that's extremely well played. I think I would have liked to have seen Symmerbred maybe respect for a couple more seconds so that their team was a little bit closer. So maybe the GA didn't get popped and then the team comes. But you got to shake your head there from ISU. And it's like, why are we really going for this? Like, are we that desperate? Maybe because of the draft, but surely we can find something better than that. Like, surely we can find something else though. Like pray for a dragon fight. They got the 3 dragons. We don't need to try it on the Irelia there.
Yeah.
Yep. I certainly see what you're saying, TJ, but I do want to actually give props to Cinnamon Bread. I want to echo Rebel Fox's point on the cast because this guy is fresh to the scene. He's 18 years old. He's in his first year of playing, collegiate amateur in any sense, and I feel like he's performing very, very well on what is probably the biggest stage he's ever played on, right? The top 16 of collegiate, ticket to LA on the line with this series, so props to him.
On the LCS channel.
Yeah, on the LCS channel as well. I mean, it really is hype. We do have about 30-40 seconds before draft. Solo, do you have any Game 2 adaptations? The teams are going to be flipping sides.
Yeah, certainly don't draft Triple AP, but I think getting him off of Irelia looks good. That guy looked really good on that champion, really comfortable. And it seems like they definitely prefer it with their jungler playing a lot more AP champions. And from what I've heard from you guys, picking Lilia seems pretty strong. So getting him off of like AD champions, getting him off of carry stuff, he definitely seemed like the driving force for UCI. So I think ISU needs to focus around making sure he can't have those opportunities. Probably their best bet.
All right. You heard it from Solo and TJ on the desk in terms of what needs to happen in Game 2. Will Solo's 2-0 prediction for UCI be correct, or do the boys, the Redbirds, have a chance in this series? Take it away, Rebel Fox and Travesty, for Game 2.